Well, I think that having the three North American countries collaborate can really enrich the experience of green building in the individual countries, because we all suffer from a certain degree of myopia, and we view our endeavors in many ways in a bubble. And there's so much to be learned across borders, also throughout the world. But I think starting with the North American collaboration can help tremendously, because already looking at the three North American countries, we see tremendous diversity in terms of political climate, building practices, sort of sense of what is standard construction as opposed to what is green. And this will enable us, I think, to have a much more holistic and well-informed view about what really is green building. That, frankly, if we can have a more common understanding of green building throughout North America, we're much, much closer to having an international understanding, because we represent so much diversity just on this continent. Certainly, energy savings and greenhouse gas reductions might be viewed as low-hanging fruit. And in the sense they are, I think, from the perspective that because there are monetary savings that accrue from energy savings, and when you save energy, you reduce greenhouse gas. And in that sense, it's low-hanging fruit. But I would actually argue that there are some ways that that's not entirely low-hanging fruit. For example, one of the challenges that I deal with in projects all the time is the fact that people understand insulation, for example, very simple concept, perhaps not as simple as they think. More insulation is a good thing. It reduces our heating and cooling loads and so forth. And yet, we understand that more insulation is a good thing. What is not well understood is that insulation has to be installed effectively. Now, that's low-hanging fruit, because there's a very, very low barrier to surmounting that as an obstacle. So there are many other such things, and a lot of them have to do with deficits in simple training and execution. These are manufacturer standards that already exist, and yet they are maybe 1% deployed effectively. So I think the huge opportunity lies in wider deployment of known strategies and practices that don't rely on emerging technologies, expensive gizmos, and so forth. They're really, really basic things that if we can learn how to implement them much more comprehensively, we will make enormous gains. Financing is really not exactly my realm. Opportunities, barriers in financing. Well, I think that there are, for example, some finance instruments that are very unknown. They're hidden opportunities. In the United States, for example, we have what's known as an energy efficient mortgage, which has been in existence for 15 years or more, and yet it's still pretty much unknown and unexploited opportunity. So once again, we have some options out there that are very poorly developed or capitalized on. And I think also the thing that's been cited very often, that we've got different pools of money to build a building and to operate a building. This isn't a simple finance challenge. This isn't going to be an easy one to fix, but it's an absolutely central one to fix, because we see so very often that something can't be put into the budget for the design and construction of a building, even when it will result in substantial savings downstream, simply because different parties control the two purses. And we absolutely need to address this issue. Well, the insulation one I mentioned earlier is so unglamorous. This is so not sexy, and yet it is enormous. It has enormous potential. And I think the involvement, that's actually a great example of one of my other sort of favorite topics to address, which is integrated project delivery. And when I talk about integrated project delivery, I talk about involving everyone who touches the building, from initiating design through to taking occupancy. whereas integrated design often really only focuses on the designers, the architects, the engineers, the planners, and so forth. And the buildings have to get built. And we're forgetting that at least half the body of knowledge, intelligence, and insight about effective green building construction resides in the construction community. And I think that this is something I'm very focused on trying to address in the United States. And I suspect that it's probably equally important throughout the continent. And if we begin to understand, for example, as part of a design team, what the construction issues are, then I can be a much more effective designer in the creation of green buildings, and I can find much better opportunities for savings. I think that a lot of perception about green building having a cost premium attached to it is fundamentally reflective of this poor coordination across the design construction divide. It's because we're not capitalizing on the knowledge of the other half of this equation.